Welcome, everyone, and welcome to you too. I've got a really awesome guest. This is actually the first podcast of this new episode of this new podcast. I've got this YouTube channel called Sean's Learning Adventure, and I'm going to be speaking with people who are experts at English.
Oh,
And you are one of those, my friend. Talk to me.
right.
Who
Good.
are you, and what do you do?
You can call me TG9X. My students call me James, and my name is Thái Dương. If your fans are Vietnamese, if they understand Vietnamese, then they can call me Thái Dương, which literally means the sun. And I'm a teacher of English, and that's my job, that's my career, that's my mission in this life. And apart from that, I do some singing, writing songs, performing on the stage, and speaking to the students. Yeah. Making contents on YouTube channel and TikTok and Facebook. So I think that's something about me.
But you're humble, man. You have quite a following. You make a lot of great
Right.
videos,
Thank you.
and you're really good at what you do. But how
Thanks.
did you, growing up, how did you learn English? What was the path that you went down to
Wow.
become good at English?
Well, thank you for saying that I'm good at English. I think, you know what, very surprisingly, my very first teacher was Britney Spears because
Talk to me. That
yeah,
sounds
right,
awesome.
right. Back in the 2000s, like 2000, 2001, yeah, that time I was exposed to Britney songs. At that time, I was one of the teens who admired her,
Yeah,
and I was very into her songs, and I wondered what they meant. And so I had to learn English just to understand the songs that were um, wholesome and friendly and lovely, not like the content nowadays.
yeah.
And so that was my motivation. I was 11 or 12 at that time. And um, and then I came across a book of grammar in my uncle's bookshelf.
Wow.
And that book was so good, such a good book that I read it from the first A to the last Z, and I understood everything.
That's
And
awesome.
I gained 80% of grammar for me right now. And that's why I always recommend that books to my students. So because of those two reasons, I had a motivation, which was Britney Spears, and I had a guidebook. Okay, I had a manuscript, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I started to learn English. And I was a person who liked to ask questions. And
Mm.
in Vietnam, I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Vietnam, after class, you can ask the teacher whatever you like. The teacher likes it, and they are willing to do it, to
Mm.
answer all of your questions. So when I had a question, I asked my teacher, and she explained things to me. And I had an enthusiastic teacher, resourceful teacher as well. So they were three reasons that brought me to English. So I had confidence in learning English, and things seemed not very difficult for me. I think I had a knack for the language as well. So that's the fourth reason. Yep. So I think I answered your question somehow.
It's a great
How
answer.
right.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that you pointed out in there that I love. I want to pick up on two things that you pointed out. The first of all is the use of music. I
Yeah.
absolutely love this, and I love that when students are able to bring a song into class or
Mhm.
bring music into their
Yeah.
learning, it just is inspiring to them. There are so many people. My wife is a singer, and she got her start in learning English from different music as well.
Yeah.
Her parents started her on the Carpenters, but then
Yeah. Yeah.
her personal journey, she loved Backstreet Boys, she loved
Yeah.
all of the boy
That's
bands,
right. That's
and
right.
Britney Spears as well.
Yeah.
Those were the outlet for her to kind of learn, and there was great pronunciation that she was able to establish, because when you're singing along to this music, you have to hear it. You have to hear how the words are put together,
Yes.
and you have to really listen. But the flip side of that, you also brought up the grammar book, and one of the things that I think people learning lessons now have such an advantage in ways is
Right.
that there is so much material out there now. There's so much
Yeah.
stuff out there to help you on your journey. Because I remember when I used to teach children, any students 20 years ago, there was
Mhm.
like they had the Kim Turin, like the little like the
Oh my
electronic
God,
dictionary.
that's century ago.
Tick,
Yeah.
tick, 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 they would type out
Yeah.
the words. It was so much more difficult, but now with technology, it's really helping
Mhm.
people
Mm.
kind of get access. But the fundamentals are still the same. I had this great this thing I saw, like, without vocabulary, you can't speak a language, but without grammar, you can't speak a language well.
Yeah, I agree. So,
Yeah,
so you want me to have an opinion on that, or
I'd love it. Yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
I said you're right. Actually, I studied to be a teacher at university, and there are three components of language: pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. Three of them make language. So,
Yeah,
missing any of them doesn't make any language. So, but I agree with you. If we have to choose between grammar and vocabulary, I think a list of vocabulary is enough to convey a certain meaning, right? However, the book that I came across was good at vocabulary explanation as well.
yeah.
So that's it. That's it. So I killed two birds with one stone in that.
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so you got that information and you start learning and you start really diving into your journey.
Yep.
When did you start saying, "Hey, you know what? I want to make this my career. I really want to."
Oh, that's a long story to tell. I
Mm,
never thought that I would become a teacher of English. I had a dream to, well, kind of shame. I had a dream to become a singer. Yeah,
it's
like Britney
awesome.
Spears. Yeah, like when I was 12. Yeah, and but I was serious enough. I understood that would never happen, and I wanted to become an engineer or a scientist because that's what most Vietnamese teenagers are supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Right?
not like in the US. In the US, if you say that you want to become a singer, that's something very normal. Or if you want to become a martial artist or something like that, it's very normal. But here, it is normal that you want to become a teacher, a doctor, such. So I studied to become a scientist, and I was a good student. I graduated with highest distinction in my class, but
Yeah.
I didn't find joy and happiness working in the laboratory. And the laboratory is a small picture of the world outside. So if I
Yeah.
don't find any joy working in the laboratory, how could I find joy working out there? So, I was struggling with my dream, my career, something like that. And at that time, I tried to find something fun to do. And like all students, when they were at university, they found a part-time job to do, and I was one of those. I worked as a tutor, and I taught English because that was my strongest point, I think. And when I delivered a lesson, I felt so happy, and
Yeah.
I felt so right. This was me, and
Mm-hmm.
and I made the student happy because they understood what they could never understand. And that feeling obsessed me. Hey, I love this feeling. I love the feeling of explaining things to other people to make it easy or seem easy. So I decided that I would become a scientist and I would work as a teacher of English as part-time job. And one night, um, well, you know what? It's a very long story to tell, and it happened long ago. I need to get things together. And so at a certain point of time, I had to switch my job from being a scientist to a full-time teacher.
Yeah.
And this can tell you that it was not an easy thing to do. It had a lot of drama, and war, and a lot of fighting, a lot of fights with my teachers who put a lot of hope in me,
Mm.
a lot of expectation. And I had to fight with my family to find an answer that, hey, what are you doing? You had 4 years at university, you had good grades, you were a good student, and now you start everything all over again. Are you sure of what you're doing? Yeah. And I had to fight with myself. Hey, am I doing the right thing? Am I
Yeah.
sure? Yes. What if it's wrong? I could not start things again.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily things went right, and now I'm a teacher, and somehow I'm a singer.
Yeah, man. It's
That's it.
interesting.
That's it.
It's awesome. Well, one of
Yeah.
the things too that not related to English, but I wanted to poke at that is a beautiful part of your journey and your story that you
Uh-huh.
described is this kind of like leap of faith. That there is this time that sometimes when we start moving in the direction that we think and know is the right direction, it's not always clean. It's
Mm-mm.
not always easy. Sometimes it can be messy. There are times
Yeah.
where doing the right thing, going down the right path can be just generally messy overall.
Yeah.
But yet, if we really believe in it and know that that's what we're supposed to be doing,
Yep.
it's something that we can, go down that path and really embrace it. So good for you.
Thanks.
Now, when you learning English, were there any like special tips or methods that helped you progress faster than other people?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. Um, you know what? Interesting question, but not easy to answer. I don't know. Yeah, actually, I
Right.
don't know. I don't know what tips, because I had no tips. Apart from the love for it, a passion for it. But let me think. I think I had to say thank to my teacher that I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, who was so enthusiastic and resourceful to answer all of my questions, to make clear all of my wondering in my mind. So, is that a tip?
I think so.
I
I
don't
mean,
think so.
in
Yeah.
a way, having a good teacher is
Yeah,
extremely
right, right,
important, you know?
right. So that was my advantage. And I told you earlier I had a knack for English, so I think that uh, I could imitate easier
Mm,
than other people. I can't deny that.
yeah.
And tips? Oh well, I think the right book. So I
Yeah.
think I was lucky.
Yeah.
I had no tips. I was just a very lucky learner that came across a good teacher, a good book, and a good motivation, a
Yeah.
good motivator. That's it. But now I have tips
Yeah.
to help my students, not
Yeah.
not not help me, because I have an
Interesting.
eye for English. And if you ask me what tip, well, it depends on the age of the students I'm working with.
Yeah.
For young learners, the tip is that games, okay, to have them repeat as much as possible what they are learning. So the key here is to repeat, 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 and repeat.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And for adults, I think the very important tip is that you need to teach very little. Teach as little as possible and give them a chance to practice as much as possible. Teach very little, they practice very much. So that's the tip. And I think that's the tip for
Yes.
teachers as well.
They're 100%, because one of the things too that I talk to people about, for especially young learners,
Yeah.
the journey to learning a language is not like we're going to sign our child up for a class and
Mm-hmm.
our kid is going to speak English after 3 months. That's not how it works. How it's going to work is that you're going to sign your kid up, and after a couple years of
Right.
practice and
Right.
fun and
Mhm.
engaging, they're going to get better. But there are things you can do. I see it with my students. There are some students that are very good at different skills, And I can pick out which student is going to be good at different skills because of what they do at home. Not
Yeah.
what they do in the classroom, what they do at home. And I tell my parents, "Yeah, I'm going to give your kid homework this week." And they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "Let them watch YouTube." Because the kids that I have that watch YouTube and watch English language videos on YouTube, whether it be Mr. Beast or, Mark Rober, there's some good content out there.
Yeah.
I love Mark Rober, his science stuff, Coyote Peterson and their, Brave Wilderness, great stuff. But those kids that watch those videos, they come back and they speak well. Students that suddenly come in are just crushing it on the reading exam. Like, what are they doing? And they go home and they grab the Harry Potter book or Percy Jackson or whatever book it is, the Wimpy Kids, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. They have those books that they read and they practice those skills. And like what you were saying, for adult classes, yes, a little bit of content and get in there and work it because it's about the repetition. It's like if you want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
So I want to get big and muscular.
Yeah.
You don't go for one workout and expect that you're going to walk home and be like, now I'm so strong. No,
Yeah.
you go to the gym again and again and again.
Right.
And you get a couple simple moves. Today I'm going to do biceps. And with learning a language, it's the same thing. You're strengthening this up here. I'm going to do this repetition, building that practice, whatever the practice is that you're working, whether it might be greetings, talking about requests, talking about advice, but you got to practice it.
Sure. I totally agree with you because you bring up gym. That's what I usually bring up in my classes with my students. It's like hitting the gym, right? You have to repeat the same thing, very boring things to do, but you have to do it. And and also before you study, you have to go through some exercises of the mouth to warm up.
Yeah.
The same happens when you go to gym. Before you really do the sessions, you need to do some warm up. So I can agree more that it's like gym. Okay, and may I share one tip of learning?
I would love it. Yeah.
Of teaching English to particularly students.
Yeah.
As I told you, students like to play games, and we need to get them to speak and get them to repeat without letting them know that they are repeating. And one of the things I usually do is to create games like this. I remember dividing the class into two teams, Team A and Team B, and now we're going to play a game called Who's Faster? Okay, so I have a picture here, for example, carrots, and you need to say a sentence. Would you like to have some carrots?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have a picture of coffee. You would say, would you like to have some coffee? Okay. I have a picture of apples. You would say, would you like to have some apples? Something like that. I have a picture and they have to produce a sentence. But the thing is, they have to say all together in chorus, in rhythm and good pronunciation. So now let's try it. Okay. So here I have carrot. Team A. Yeah, good guess. But some people are missing. Oh, so what about you, B? You can try. Oh, that's very good. But you forgot the final sounds. Okay, now Team A again. You can try that again until one team reaches my rotation first. As you can see, they repeat a lot, but they don't know that they're repeating. And the result after that activity is that they speak a lot, and they repeat a lot until they can say, would you like something? Naturally.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
I love that. Well, one of the other things too with that that activity is that there has to be a time where you have to make being uncomfortable fun. As a teacher, you have to make being uncomfortable fun. And that's why when you introduce a game to an activity that might be vulnerable, make a person feel uncomfortable. Because let's be real, when you learn a new language, whether it be English, Vietnamese, Japanese, Korean, there's going to be sounds that you might feel awkward doing. When I started learning Vietnamese and I started doing some of the vowel sounds, we don't have that sound, and like I felt like I felt so awkward doing some of these noises, but my teacher was able to make it fun for me. So that when I said, pho. I didn't say faux. I'm
Oh,
like
yeah.
pho, and I was just like, oh, that's creative. I got it down. Yay! I felt happy. I was able to succeed at something. But there were times when I was learning a language that I felt uncomfortable, and I think that if you can gamify it, make things fun, get an activity that is interesting, then you can make that discomfort temporary. And not as challenging. Because let's be real. Do you know one of the biggest fears that people have is public speaking? Standing up in front of an audience is one of the biggest
That's it.
fears that people have,
Yeah. So how do I deal with that,
right?
right? Or how do I deal with helping my students?
Yeah.
What are you interested in more?
Yeah. Well, how do you help students get past their
Um,
fears about trying?
okay, about fears of trying. Okay, so as I always share in my stories, in my songs, you need to do it step by step.
Yes.
Okay? And you need to build a scaffold for your students
I
before they
love
can
that.
speak in front of 1,000 people. They need to speak in front of one person first until they are ready with that, and then 2 people, and then 10 people, and then 50 people, and then larger and larger audience. That's it. And I
Yeah.
think that's what all teachers do, not just me. And I think you do
Yeah.
that too, right?
But it's great to
Uh,
hear it articulated because,
uh,
sometimes people don't think about that. Like a student comes in and says, I want to speak in front of people, let's think, how are we going to help this person go and be on the TED Talk? Well, that might not be their goal. Most often, when I have people who come in and are asking for help, especially if it's like a business English person, they want to know how to talk in front of their boss.
uh,
Or, especially when I have private clients in Vietnam that are coming in, they're like, all right, so we have this corporate executive that's coming in from Germany or coming in from the US, and they're going to speak to us in English. And I need to be able to stand up in front of my boss
mhm,
and articulate things in a clear way. And
mhm.
I said, and this is one of the things that I said, I said, don't worry about your accent. Everyone has accents. What
Yeah.
you work about, can you speak clearly? And can you calm yourself enough so that they can understand?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That's it.
Yeah.
I
So,
I have
but hearing
two.
hearing hearing that scaffolding though got me thinking though, because that's such a great point. Maybe they need to talk to in front of their wife first, or talk in front of a
Oh my
kid.
God, that's scary.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's more terrifying.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yes. So I agree with you. And okay, when it comes to how to help students, we could spend hours,
Right?
because there are so many
Hundred
situations
percent. 100%.
and many different solutions and
Right.
many different stories to tell. I don't know what to start, so I'm waiting for your
Yeah.
question. It's easier
Well,
for me.
let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
I pulled up some IELTS speaking tips, and I
Mm.
want to hear your opinion on whether you think these are good or how you would use them. All right, speaking tip number one for IELTS that I found on the wonderful Chat GPT. Here's the one that they said: give longer answers. If a
Oh,
person asks you a question like, "What is your favorite animal?" Giving a longer answer. So instead of like, "What's your favorite animal?" A dog. Okay.
oh,
Giving a longer answer. What do you
yes.
think about that tip? Do you think that's a valuable tip?
Yes, it is. I think so. And because of some reasons. First, the IELTS test is actually a test on performance. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need to perform,
Yeah.
and perform is to show what is sometimes not very real. So
Yeah.
normally when my wife asks me, hey, honey, what animal do you like? Well, I like dogs. That's enough. But
Right?
as an IELTS candidate, you need to say, well, my friends like cats and dinosaurs, fish, but I think I'm interested in dogs. So
Yeah.
that is one acceptable answer. That they have some material, some sources to uh, examine us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's how I help my students develop an answer, but not too long. And not too
Yes.
long to be irrelevant. Some answers are super awkward.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, uh, instead of saying my name is Yoon, you could say, well, my identification is something like that.
Right.
No one understands.
Yeah.
So I think that I will Agree up to a point. To
Right.
your
Because like
point.
this, let's say someone asks you this, like, what is your favorite animal? You're like, I like dogs. Do you know my uncle has 5 dogs? They are cute. Those dogs live at his house. His wife
No,
carries the dog. And you're like, whoa, hang
right.
on, whoa, whoa,
That's
whoa,
too
too
much
much.
information.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But I think expanding on an answer is always good if you can make it relevant. Like, oh,
Yeah,
my favorite
relevant.
animal is dogs. I have 3 dogs, and my favorite dog is a dog that we have, and it is a border collie. And then I
Yeah,
love
right.
always teaching my students to then turn it back.
Right.
And how about you? And then sending the question back to the test giver.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, but there are many ways for us to lengthen or develop
Yes,
the answer, but still make it relevant. Like,
yes,
I like dogs, particularly Shiba dog, a kind of
yes,
Japanese breed.
yeah,
That's long enough
exactly,
and irrelevant.
exactly.
And it's relevant.
Yeah, it is relevant, right? Because it's still you into something that you are into and enjoy. Now, one of the things too is that they also in this advice said this thing, and I want to ask you about this. And it said when you are doing a speaking activity, try to use different words and try to use different grammar. So like instead of repeating good, bad, try something like amazing, beneficial, or challenging. What do you think about that advice?
Once again, I agree up to a point.
Okay.
Again, because this is an IELTS test and you need to perform. And one of the criteria to examine you is vocabulary or lexical resource, right? You need to use
Yeah.
a wide range of vocabularies, and knowing a lot of vocabularies for one word is an advantage,
Yeah.
right? If possible, you need to show that you can use various words. But again, relevance and
Yeah.
naturality is still a must.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation.
I 100% agree. There
Yeah.
was if you go and I love something. One of the things that I think is sad about modern English students is that people are reading less. It
Oh,
used to be that I would have students come in and they would be very avid readers. People were reading this and that. And, especially books like Harry Potter and things they would be reading. But now, not many of my students are reading. Everyone's watching YouTube and people are becoming better speakers, but people don't have that depth of knowledge that comes with reading. And one of
yeah.
the things that if you go and read different authors, like you read someone like Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, great writer. He's wordy. Like when you read
Oh,
his stuff, there's a lot of words.
yes.
Tolkien will talk around an object. You talk. I have a microphone on my table. Tolkien would give you 10,000 words about that microphone. But then you
Oh,
get a writer like Ernest Hemingway, and Hemingway was famous for his very simplistic speaking and writing style. It would be like the black microphone on my desk. Boom, it was enough. And one of the things too that I like people, and I try to teach my students to be effective in their communication, to think about what is needed to convey meaning, not getting too crazy and not going overboard. I like to try to teach people to kind of have focused communication. What do you think about that?
Um, so you're asking me what I think about
I don't know.
that
do
students
you
reading less, or
about having focused communication?
what's that? What is focus communication? What do you mean?
Meaning being more efficient, not using too many fancy words.
Mm, Actually, it
Tell
really
me.
depends.
I love it.
In the IELTS exam, I don't think it's a good advice. But
Okay, I love this. Tell me why.
why what?
No, I'd love to know why. Why is this not great advice?
To use simple words or
Yeah,
to use fancy words?
to use simple words.
Uh, yeah, because one of the criteria is to show that you have a wide range of vocabulary. So if you use too simple words, you have to sacrifice that criteria of vocabulary.
You're
But
right.
in life, I suggest using simple words, speaking in a simple way, just like the
Yeah,
way I'm speaking Vietnamese and the way I'm speaking English.
yeah.
Makes things simple. Life is harsh enough. So,
Right,
that's like that there's a thin line between IELTS speaking and live speaking.
right. Well, this is a good point because one of the things that I know that IELTS videos, everyone loves IELTS, and IELTS draws this big draw. And my wife was talking now. She's like, "Well, if you're making this channel about IELTS, I can't come on there because my IELTS score wasn't amazing." But I looked at her and I laughed and I said, "That's funny because you and I speak English all the time, and there's never a miscommunication. Like, we are very effective at communication. You are an exceptional communicator in English, but yet you probably wouldn't have a high score because it's fancy communication style,
That's it.
and it's like
That's it.
it's this performance level."
Performance. Yeah, I told you that word, right? We need to perform.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think she can do that. If she wants to do it, she can do it because
Right?
she's a performer right now. She's a performer, but now
I
we need to
agree.
change the stage to the exam room.
Right. Well, here one last bit of advice that I dug up, and this is the last one. Speak smoothly, not perfectly. The idea of focus on being smooth, but you don't need to be perfect. What do you
So
think about that one?
I would go for that one, of course, because to me, speaking fluently is more important than speaking accurately.
Yes.
And but sadly, the IELTS exam doesn't want it. And so what now, Sean? What now?
What do we do, right?
What do you do? So it depends on you. What do you want? If you want to
Yeah.
get a higher score, if you want to get a 5, okay, so just speak it up. Just speak out everything you want and
Yes.
just communicate the simple way, and you will get a 5, and you have your dream come true. That's enough.
Yeah.
But if you want a 7, an 8, a higher score, then you need to think out of the box. You need to step out of your comfort zone. You need to learn fancy words, and you need to learn to speak both smoothly and accurately at the same time.
I love it.
Uh,
One of the things that you said there that I really love is, what is your goal? It's like, in your language learning, are you learning to become a tour guide? Are you learning to become a translator? Are
Yep.
you learning to simply be able to communicate to people?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
all of these have slightly different focus. Are you learning to be an English teacher? All of these have a different focus. Are you learning to simply improve your career? There's a lot of different reasons people can learn a language, and I think at the end of the day, if people can identify what their goal is,
Yeah,
it gives them a lot of room to focus.
that's it. And every time I go speak to students or parents, I always receive one question:
Mm,
how to study English effectively.
I like that.
Yeah, I always receive that question, and I say, well, it's very difficult for me to answer this question because I need to know why you're learning English.
Yes.
I need to know how you're learning English right now, and I need to know what you want. I need to know how learner you are. Are you a fast learner? Do you have a knack for English, or are you good at math or science, not language? Depending on each situation, I will have an advice for you to learn effectively. And you need to define effective first.
Yes.
What do you mean by effective? To IELTS candidates, effectively is you can absorb as much vocabulary as possible, and you can use fancy words, very, very fancy words. That's effectively.
Yeah.
Okay, but to those who are like Sean and V, they don't even need to say a word. You see,
Yeah.
husband and wife. Yeah,
Right. One
right.
last question. And we'll finish up. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice about learning a language, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, this is an interesting question. It's not easy at all. So what would I give my, well, Sean, I think I'm happy with what I have now. And this is not a cliche, but I don't want to change any single thing in the past. This is
Love that.
this is true. I really treasure all the things I've done and all the mistakes I made. And I think it's part of learning.
I love that.
And any advice for myself? Okay, to answer your question, I would say that keep doing it. Trust yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Brother, I love that.
So
Where
is my
can
answer relevant?
It's a perfect answer.
Yeah,
It's a
good.
great answer.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and look for your content?
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook. It's a Vietnamese channel Thầy giáo 9X Thái
Yeah,
Dương. On my fan page, 1.4 million followers. I
that's
hope that you
awesome.
can join my community of followers, or you can find me on TikTok, TG9X Thái Dương.
That's awesome. Well,
And I hope that in the future I can be in Sean's podcast of other topics, so you can find me there if Sean
awesome.
allows me to be
I'd
there.
love it, man. I'd love to have you back and we can talk about some more fun topics.